Hey, folks, welcome in. Impromptu live. Alabama did some portal work today. It was kind of quiet, a little unexpected, even. So we want to talk about it a little bit, as well as the outlook now for Alabama's offensive line moving forward into the 2026 season. There's two schools of thoughts on this, so definitely want to discuss it. So if you guys are living under a rock and don't know what I'm talking about, today, kind of almost out of seemingly nowhere, news starts breaking that former Mississippi State offensive tackle Javen James was on campus in Tuscaloosa, and very, very quickly the thing started to heating up until he committed later in the afternoon. Really good get for Alabama. Really good get. And before I want to preface everything we're going to talk about in this live by saying, I know a lot of people have a negative view of where Alabama is right now. A lot of people are on the other side of that fence, and they expect Alabama to win a national championship no matter what. I'm going to try to keep it as realistic as possible without going overboard and being uber negative. I'm trying to find a balance that you guys like. It's really difficult. If I'm positive about Alabama, I've got half the audience pissed off because we're going to suck next year and blah, blah, blah. You're not being realistic. And then if I'm, critical of Alabama, they're telling me I'm being too negative. So trying to find some balance here. It's not easy, but we're going to do the best I can. It's just me right now. Jeff might pop in. He's at work. So, production stuff may happen. Hopefully you can hear me fine. Somebody in the chat, let me know if we sound good, if we look good, what's going on. And so send in your questions. We'll talk about it. We'll do the best we can to answer them. But yeah, mainly, so Alabama gets a commitment from Javen James, big time, right? Alabama needed to basically retool this offensive line, and that looks like what the staff's going to do. I've said it in a lot of videos. There were 3 areas of concern right off the bat that Alabama really needed to address in the offseason, the offensive line being one. The defensive line quickly became one due to portal exits and guys going to the draft and things like that. And then obviously special teams. Well, the staff has done a good job of rebuilding those units. Thank you, Pate. Appreciate you. They've done a really good job of rebuilding those units, but the question remains is how good will they be and what's the realistic expectation for them going into 2026? Well, we're going to talk about that. But let's cover this new commit first. James comes in from Mississippi State, played at Akron for a couple of seasons before he transferred to Mississippi State. 6'5", 320-pound offensive tackles, got 2 seasons of eligibility remaining. Like I said, was at Akron, transferred to Mississippi State. That experience definitely likely, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, going to be the most experienced offensive lineman in the room as of today. Moving into the 2026 season. He had 21 career starts across Akron and Mississippi State. And that is definitely something that Alabama needed up front big time. There was the potential that Alabama was going to start all sophomore on the line. Still could happen depending on how this thing shakes out. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, so don't go anywhere. But really, they needed some experience. And there was kind of there's a philosophy right now. Everybody's moving towards this model of go get the older guys who have played a ton of football. And I get it and I respect it. I get it. Indiana won with that this year. The other side of that coin being go develop the high school talent, create a culture in which they'll stay. So Alabama's trying to find a balance between the two things. No, I don't mean to keep doing the 6-7 with my hands, but they're trying to find a balance between the two things. I don't know where they're landing right now. This portal class is good. It's supplementary. It's exactly what they need to come in and supplement what they already have, what they've recruited from the high school level. You just have to be concerned about the inexperience in the youth, and a guy like James helps with that right off the bat. So why he's a good fit for Alabama, let's just knock this out. SEC experience matters. I was listening to Clint earlier over at Cover Crimson. He's absolutely right. Doesn't matter what school they come from, where they come from, being an SEC offensive lineman, starting offensive lineman is important. in this conference. Alabama, we all know, has to figure out how to run the football. It remains to be seen if they're going to be able to do it. It remains to be seen if it's even going to be a priority. I know a lot of you are going to be watching this, and in the comment section, you're going to be like, it doesn't matter who we get on the offensive line or running the football as long as Coach Cap is there. I understand your concerns thoroughly. I do understand your concerns. Did a video earlier today discussing looking at the offensive lines and sacks allowed under his career since 2012, and it's not good. So I hear you. But this is what we're working with, right? So in 2025, he started 12 games for Mississippi State, including he played 9 of those at left tackle. Obviously, this is a very, very important position, especially considering that Alabama, Keelan Russell, and potentially Austin Mack, whoever the starter is going to be, are right-handed quarterbacks. Logged about 856 total snaps in his career. He shows he can handle a high workload. He's durable, which we need. You want your offensive linemen to be durable, of course. I think about 457. I might be wrong on that number. It might be 56, somewhere in there, but we're pass sets. All right. And so on those, 25 of those were legit pressures last season at Mississippi State, and he only allowed just 3 sacks in that time. Now, I went back and was watching him this morning. It kind of started to get the word that this was a guy that was going to commit. So, you want to watch and kind of get up to speed. And I started watching. Of course, the first game I pick is the Texas game. And I get about halfway through it before I have to do some stuff for work. And everything I'm looking from number 77 at Mississippi State looks really, really good on tape. All right. Looks really, really good. Take a break, come back, watch the second half later, and boom. Pretty much he gives up the game winning or game sealing sack for Texas. But ultimately, just looking at some of his other play, a solid guy, especially in pass protection. Now, he could be polished a little bit more in the run game, which I understand is not necessarily what you want to hear because Alabama needs guys who are maulers so that they can run the football just because they haven't been able to. It's been pretty bad, right? Not been great. Oh, here we go. We got some folks coming in here. What's up, guys? Feel free to put your questions in the chat. We'll get to them. Obviously, super chats take priority. What's up, Alabama Poe? Yeah, we do. We got a lot. I don't think we have too many, man. I honestly, dude, with the way the injury bug hit Alabama in 2025, I don't know if that's a real thing. You know what I mean? But we're going to look at, I actually got a graphic for you. We'll look at all the incoming names. Roll Tide J-Bake. Roll Tide DC, how you doing? So hope everybody's doing okay. I know you guys up there, I don't live in Alabama right now, but I know you guys have some nasty weather coming in. How's that weather looking up in North Alabama? This is going to be pretty bad. Snow, ice. What's the deal? Everybody got their bread and milk. What's James Spann saying? So, dude. Yeah, and I'll be honest, there's a good chance it's going to happen, or especially early in the season. Now, I keep talking about the inexperience positionally for Alabama, and there's a lot of it because there's a lot of youth. But luckily for the Tide, the season early on, the first couple of weeks, sets up nicely for them as opposed to 2025. You got Eastern Carolina, who's not going to be a slouch, don't get me wrong. So they'll have some time in between week 1 and week 2 to get it figured out. I'm hoping this goes a lot like it did 2 years ago. Felt like in the USF game at home, the Tide was struggling. Alabama's offensive line was struggling, and they were kind of plugging and playing and rotating guys, trying to figure out what was going to fit. And they finally got something late in that game, and they just stuck with it. The musical chairs thing is very, very frustrating. I understand. I agree with you. So, hey, Roll Tide, man. Newman, Georgia. You guys getting some weather up there in Newman? It's good stuff. Oh, man. Well, be safe, dude. Don't go anywhere. Southerners don't drive in ice, man. We just don't do it. But let's get back to talking about James here. Some aspects of his game that I think he needs to work on, just looking at him. I looked through. He did have 6 penalties all season. Good discipline and fundamentals, but a lot of those were holding. So he's a little bit injury prone, or not injury prone, excuse me, penalty prone. So it's definitely something you want to keep in mind with him. But also considering that he's got experience at both tackle positions, he's got some versatility in there. So, it's a very, very good get. Now, the question becomes, is this a depth piece? I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know right off the bat, because you have to consider Alabama goes and gets Ty Haywood. I'm aware of the rumors that he hasn't signed yet. I don't know anything about it. I don't know how valid that is. So I'm not even going to jump into that pool right now. But, what's Alabama going to do? Obviously, Michael Carroll's he's a starter, right? He proved his worth his freshman year. He's going to be a starter. Do they try to move a guy like Ty Haywood over in the guard so that James can play left tackle? What's that going to look like? He's got a ton of experience there. So I just feel like that's going to be his position, his body size, everything compositionally just looks like a left tackle. So it remains to be seen. Now, areas he still needs to improve. We just kind of mentioned run blocking consistencies. Run blocking grades aren't eye-popping last season. His pass pro is solid depending on what models you look at. But I will say, ultimately, all these guys that Alabama are bringing compared to who they're replacing, they're not up to par with the guys they're replacing. Now, we have to consider, are they trying to get different body types? What's that going to look like in 2026? But we'll see. It's a waiting game. Here's the thing I'm not going to do. And Clint, Christian Miller, they've kind of been talking about this all day, and I agree with them. Last year, people who had kind of an in going through spring ball and into the summer were extremely high on Alabama. And a lot of that talk, got picked up and talked about and discussed. And there was this super big hype train built moving into the 2025 season. And, the week one, it was just an absolute letdown. And so we don't want to do that this year. And so we're going to try to keep it as balanced as possible. It doesn't mean we're being negative. Doesn't mean we're being overly positive. We just want to be realistic, because this is a very, very young team in 2026, a very talented team. The offensive line, I like where it's headed. I do. But even with the guys they brought in, between Delgatti and James, outside of that, there's not a ton of career starts except for Carroll. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out. But in terms of James, athleticism, quickness at the point of attack, him transitioning into Alabama's system kind of means handling more complex defensive looks, developing that lateral quickness. He moves pretty good laterally already, but obviously you want to develop that a little bit, refine that footwork, helps with leverage, things like that. And then obviously there's going to be, right now you're getting guys in, trying to finalize this roster going into the year. You're going to get guys into workouts and things like that. But there's going to be an adaptation period for him and everybody else coming in via the transfer portal to get used to whatever Ryan Grubb, Kalen DeBoer, Coach Cap is teaching them. Now that's assuming there's no coaching staff changes that could still be on the horizon. I don't know. I have my thoughts on whether there should be or shouldn't be, but I'm sure you do too, right? So, but I think this is a solid get. You know what I mean? Yes. Yeah, Willie. Absolutely. Absolutely. Too happy too soon. But I think this is a solid get. And I really do like the way Alabama's offensive line looks right now. Let me bring this up so you guys can see everybody that they brought in. So this is everybody the Tides brought in. Caden Strayhorn from Michigan, of course. Racing Delgatti, the Cal Poly transfer. Ty Haywood from Michigan. He's the one that there's rumors going around that he hasn't signed yet. We'll see. You got Ethan Fields, Javen James, and then Nick Brooks from over at Texas. So Alabama loses a ton early on. It hurts. It stings. I get it. Everybody's kind of panicking. I was very unsure about the offensive line too a week and a half ago. And I'll be honest, it still makes me a little nervous moving forward just because, you go and get a couple of guys who have some experience. but ultimately overall, what's it going to look like? And how do we temper those expectations so that there's not a major letdown, you know? And then we have to consider that there are other variables at play here outside of just personnel. Yes, they absolutely did. They did have 1,000-yard rusher. But they also had a different offensive line coach at Washington. Scott Huff, I believe, was, chat, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott Huff was the offensive line coach at Washington, and he is now somewhere coaching tight ends. I can't remember, up in the league. And so different stuff, man. So and that sucked because you looked at what Washington did under Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb with that, you know, what the wide receivers did, what Michael Penix Jr. did. And then you look and all of a sudden you're like, bang, they got to have 1,000-yard rusher. That's promising in the SEC. It's promising, but there's a little bit of, I think, this is just my opinion here, there's a little bit too much finesse going on. And Alabama has to return to those physical roots that we're used to, right? They've got to return to those physical roots. And if they don't, it could get ugly, and that's not what we want. That's not what you want. That's not what you want to hear. And so you look at every national championship team in recent history, and they're physical in the trenches. Alabama has not been. I think some of it is a mentality issue. They've had the bodies to be physical. Some of it is probably coaching. Some of it is probably being coached, being able to be coached up. So you can make a lot of excuses, but at the end of the day, a lot of people didn't do their jobs, and that's where we ended up, So just my thought. Let's look at some of your questions. Yeah, Dylan Johnson. That's right. Nothing of yet. This was interesting. It felt really confident about him for a while. And then things just kind of went quiet. Now, I will say I would not be surprised to see Alabama get another linebacker out of the portal. I like what they have right now. I really, really do, especially the off-ball guys. But, yeah, it's just going to be a wait and see there. I don't know. And then for those of you who are kind of banking on Nico Brown, I don't know if you saw the Yale wide receiver with the outstanding numbers. He ended up committing to Stanford. So that's where we are there. So Haywood hasn't signed. That's the rumor. That's the rumor going around. There's nothing credible to suggest that. We'll see. Hopefully they get it done and they learn their lesson with Smothers. But yeah, we don't know for sure yet. So Huff did. Is that who you're talking about, Willie? All right. Interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. Whew. Did you guys see the new hire Bama had yesterday? Yes, no? Sherman Wilson. Let's talk about Sherman Wilson for a second, then we'll go back to O-line play. I think you guys will like this. Actually, let's get to we got some super chats. I'm going to get to those. I love what you do, brother. Even with the crap audio, sometimes I'm always going to tune in. Hey, man, I think I fixed it. But now I had some issues with the visuals not tracking with the audio on par. So, hey, look, dude, I live in Florida, extremely close to the Atlantic Ocean. And so internet is always going to be wonky here. There's literally nothing I can do about it. No matter what, we roll, baby. We roll. Another one for the O-line. Absolutely. The more the merrier, right? No, Dylan, he's not leaving the Rams. Not to come to Tuscaloosa. So if he gets fired, that's a different story. But anyway. All right. Let's talk about Wilson. This is a pretty interesting hire, I think. One that I'm actually really excited about in Sherman Wilson. Sherman Wilson, he's a NOLA native. Worked for LSU, basically their director of recruiting. what Aaron Hodges was to Alabama, and he has hinted, it's not been officially announced via Alabama yet, but he has made it very clear that he is now employed with the Tide in Tuscaloosa. This will be really interesting because obviously this coaching staff at Alabama their focus is major recruiting at the high school level. If you guys aren't tracking right now, they're on the trail and they are working their absolute tails off. They've got a 5-star offensive tackle coming in on January 31st for a visit. Kalen DeBoer's flying helicopters all over the place, visiting 4-star players and things like that. But it's cool here because, and I got to thinking about it last night. Obviously, the main contender for Louisiana State talent is going to be LSU. Lane Kiffin does not focally recruit at the high school level. Now his strategy might change at LSU, but at Ole Miss, he definitely did not. He's called the Portal King for a reason. So it could potentially open up a pipeline for Alabama back into Louisiana and even Texas with those connections, which will be interesting to watch as we go through the recruiting cycle. Because again, I think Alabama's focus is let's try to create a culture that folks don't want to leave once we get them on campus. And it's worked so far. The only person they've recruited at the high school level who hasn't left is Micah DeBose. And then, let's recruit at a high level out of high school and work on developing that talent. We're going to find out how well they can develop it here in 2026 because a lot of that talent they recruited is going to be playing. So, all right, let's go back to the comments. What's up, Steven? You doing all right, man? It's a little impromptu live just to talk about Alabama's latest commitment out of the portal. Now, I don't think Alabama's done. By any stretch of the means. I wouldn't be surprised if they went after another true edge guy. They don't necessarily need it, getting Zulu over there from South Carolina. But, if the plan is to use him at Bandit, they may still go get another guy, or maybe they go get another linebacker, HaHa's brother. There's still some options there. Alabama, I think, is just my opinion, staff's going to do what they want. I do think that they need to probably go after another running back and another wide receiver. I think they're set at offensive line. I'm comfortable with it. Even if the injury bug hits, this line's going to be young, but they've got enough depth there. It'll be inexperience, but they've got enough layers there to kind of cover down if the injury bug hits like it did last year. Willie, did you just Google all that, man? It's impressive work, dude. Super impressive. Absolutely. Well, yeah. So, look, Gage, you've got a sect of the fan base that wants to watch the world burn. And you got a heavy portion of the Alabama fan base who is, I believe, they're really struggling to come to terms with not just what Alabama is right now, but what college football is as a whole, because it's changed so much. It's unrecognizable. College sports in general are unrecognizable. I know the Charles Bediako news is kind of funny for Alabama fans, but let's be honest, man, that should never happen. Like, it's not good for college athletics. And so they're struggling. They don't know how to deal with it. And they're overly negative. They're pissed off, and they've got nowhere else to focus that attention. So they do on social media. But you're right. It does have an impact, especially in today's age where everybody's looking at Instagram. I scroll through my TikTok sometimes. I know TikTok, but I scroll through it sometimes, and there's players, that Alabama's tried to recruit, or players that are from Alabama who, they're on there live playing games, and you get on there, they're just playing games with friends, man, live. And you get on there in the comment section, it's just going nuts. I saw one with Fagans over at Auburn. He's got Deuce Knight on the live with him. And dude, the fans are just reaming Deuce about leaving Auburn. And, I get it. They're upset, but people care. They're passionate. And I respect that. I understand that. I for me personally, I love the University of Alabama, but I think there's got to be a line, right? There's got to be a line that we don't cross, because to present it, first of all, it does turn people off, not just players, but also potential future coaches. Everybody wants Kalen DeBoer fired, or the folks that want Kalen DeBoer fired are the same folks that are spewing venom online. And if he does get fired, nobody wants that daggum job. It makes it hard for a coach to find that. The pressure there, it's a lot. It's a whole lot. Now, Kalen DeBoer's done a lot of that himself. I find it very interesting that Nick Saban said what he said, in the national media after the Rose Bowl, like, hey, I think he's doing a good job, but that's not the daggum standard, right? And Nick Saban's right. I don't think the standard should ever change, right? I think as Alabama fans, we should expect Alabama to be competing for national championships year in and year out, right? But we also have to understand that that's not the reality of college football anymore, right? So it's okay if Alabama doesn't make the playoff next season, right? That's okay if they just miss it. Now, if Bama gets blown out and loses 7 or 8 games, all hell's going to break loose. But if they miss the playoffs by 1 loss or something like that, okay, next year, right? Next year. But when that becomes the trend, that's when we've got a problem, right? And so it's been we're 5 years removed from the 2020 national championship. It's harder than it's ever been to win a natty. It's going to be harder. Maybe even impossible to build a dynasty or go back to back. Don't believe me? Ask Georgia. So yeah, Seth, sorry, way off topic, but yeah, I saw him come open earlier. I haven't got a chance to look at him yet. What do you think about him, Seth? Tell me in the comments below. Give me your expert analysis, sir. I'll put it up on the screen. So nothing much. Just talking about Alabama. The Tide got him my offensive tackle from over there at Mississippi State, right down the street over in Starksville. Hey, Jeff, how's work? You doing okay at work, Jeff? Hope you're having a good time. So, Army, I agree. I agree with you. I agree. But at a certain point, criticism becomes venom. And I think that's where people kind of struggle. And I get it, man. Here's the thing. What happened to Alabama, especially in that Rose Bowl game, that was absolutely embarrassing. Like it was gross. It was hard to watch. It was hard to swallow. Not just because it was a straight, beat down, but because Indiana used the same formula Alabama used for years and years and years and years, and then did it to Alabama and showed, hey, this still works. Right. I saw so many people flooding the social media. Well, Alabama missed the ball and didn't hire Curt Cignetti. Curt Cignetti was already hired at Indiana. Like he wasn't available. But that aside, like I get it, man. We don't know. There's an uncertainty whether this West Coast stuff is going to work in Tuscaloosa. Right. Again, like I said about 10 minutes ago, physicality versus finesse. Right. I think the coaching staff, I did a video on this earlier. I took it down because people got pissy and said it was too negative, but the coaching staff has to adapt to that. They have to. Alabama has to be more physical in the trenches in the run game. If Alabama could have run the daggum football last season, they would have been playing in the national championship Monday night. I am 100% convinced of that. If they just could have run the football. And that's what pisses people off. It's frustrating. You know what I mean? So it's a good question. What would be my rules for NCAA transfer portal if you're above everything? What would you change about the whole thing? First and foremost, if NIL is going to stay, contracts, legitimate contracts, and we're talking multi-year contracts. If I'm going to pay you, or Billy Bob, who owns this restaurant over here, is going to pay you $1 million to come to Alabama, you're going to come to Alabama. If we're going to pay for your school still on top of all of that, you're going to come to Alabama and you're going to stay at Alabama. If you leave Alabama, I think that there has to be a fiscal responsibility, maybe to pay some of it back. Also, I think we need to go back to the old rule where if you transfer, you sit out a year, you go JUCO. I think that would fix a lot of this. Lot of it. Byron, you're not wrong. That's another aspect of this. If you run him off, there's nobody out there to replace him right now. And I know a lot of you are going to say Jeremy Pruitt, but I don't think Alabama's going to go after somebody that controversial right now, which I personally don't understand why he would be a controversial hire, but ultimately overall, he definitely would be. It's why Alabama, I don't think ever realistically went after Lane Kiffin when Nick Saban retired. Yes, Lance, 2-year signings. I agree. Yeah, I did a video on this earlier today. I brought this up in a video with Ryan Grubb at the helm. Seattle was like 5th worst in the league running the football, and this year they're top 10 in the league, something like that, running the football. I think that was at the end of the regular season. So take that for what it is. Oh, let me get that off the screen. So that's what they said about Sheila. So yeah, Lance, I saw some people talking about this. It actually may have been you in Clint's chat that was talking about this. I think some of it is body types, but some of it is not. Some of it is more technical ability, right? Some of it is, sure, if a tackle is going to be as big as Caden Proctor, that's great, but can he move better than Caden Proctor? This is initial look, right? James, I think he moves laterally a little bit better than Caden Proctor, just a little bit, right? Again, his game where he needs to be refined and better is the run game. But you could have said that about Alabama's entire offensive line last year. So I think it comes down to those little bitty things, really, as opposed to body size. But also, man, they're working with what's available. So, if they had a lab and could create their perfect offensive lineman, I'm sure they would, man. I'm sure they would. Yeah, I saw that too. Look, the day he committed, I went back and looked at that, and I was like, "Oh shit!" That's why we didn't do a video when he committed. I saw the same thing you saw, man. I was like, "Nah, okay." Not gonna say a word, but you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. So I don't disagree with you. Well, no, yeah. Why would they, man? Why would they? I mean, Notre Dame has come out and said that the $20 million rev share cap is too low, right? And it's because they can't outbid certain schools with boosters that are paying crazy amounts of money. That's the problem. The problem isn't necessarily the schools paying the players. If there's a legitimate cap, there's two problems. The problem becomes, are the schools adhering to that? Some of which I would say right now definitely aren't. And I'll just say it. I'm talking about Texas and LSU. And then, the fact that kids can just be bought, right? They can just be bought and start bidding wars. Jordan Seaton's a great example of what he's doing right now. The reason I think he's already committed to LSU. This is just me. This is me quietly. I could be way off base here. I have no actual intel on this, but I think he's silently committed to LSU, and he is right now bargaining, just shopping himself around. And if somebody's willing to pay, change, but that dude, we're talking about, it's broken. It's a broken system. This is why I tell people, if you don't like it, just stop watching, because that's the only way anything changes. The NCAA, this isn't the same situation, but the NCAA came out yesterday after Bediako filed the lawsuit in Tuscaloosa for the restraining order to play immediately. The NCAA comes out and says no. Right? He signed NBA contracts, 3 of them. Like, he cannot play at this level. Wasn't 12 hours later, and judge overrules it. So the NCAA really has no power to do anything here. And they made that bed, dude. There you go. Yeah, Army. They made that bed. Top 5 coaches. Sure, why not? Young POV, I'm going to disagree with you. And I think you got to move Signetti to number 3 right now. He's got a national championship. Look, I know a lot of people don't like it. I know a lot of people don't like the age of Indiana's team this year, but what they did was pretty historic. And them being able to do it, sure, they're all 23 years old, but they're not blue chip guys. Them being able to do that, I feel like that's got a lot to do with Cignetti. Like, I don't want to take away from the coaching job he did this year. So I'd put him at number 3. And I'd put Kalen DeBoer at number 4 just because he's beat Sark. It's crazy that you've got active head coaches who have multiple national championships who aren't in this top 5, but they're not keeping up with the times. Sorry, Devo. Mr. Sweeney. Stephen Burton, shout out, man. Thanks for the $20 super chat. Stephen, how's your week going, buddy? Let's just chat, you and I, for a second. Let's have an intimate moment on camera. Verbally. Never mind. I'm taking it too far. Thank you, Steven. Steven's never going to give a super chat again. He's like, that's uncomfortable. Yeah, I agree with you. Well done. Well done. Very well done. I like it. Good, man. I'm happy to hear it, dude. Can't complain. Wouldn't change anything if you did, right? So, all right. I'm okay. I like this. And a linebacker. I want one more linebacker. I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good. I'm really interested in this bandit position. I'm not going to get into a ton of detail. I did a video on it earlier. I tried my best. Look, I'm not Clint Lamb. So that dude knows more about football than it just Clint's off the charts, man. But I tried to do my best Clint Lamb impression, and I failed miserably, but it's still worth a watch. Talked about that bandit position. I'm really interested to see how that pans out with, Jameer Matthews coming in, you got Nolan Wilson, Malik Franklin discussing that, Alabama wants to use him in 3-tech and wants to put a lot of weight on him. So should be kind of interesting, but I agree with this. One more wide receiver I'd be okay with. I don't think they necessarily need to unless they've got the money to spend. Would love to see a good running back, a proven running back. It doesn't have to be some big name, but I'd love to see a guy with some experience. And so we'll see. We'll see. But that linebacker, I agree. Still looking at HaHa's brother, and then potentially the guy from Miami. My screen's blacked out. Is my screen blacked out, chat? All right. Gage, do you follow me on Twitter? I'm assuming not. Okay. When that got posted by On3, I immediately retweeted it and said, this is bait. And what they were doing is they had just posted the one article. And so they retweeted the article that had the big names on the front. One of the guys that was on the graphic was already committed to LSU. The Prince of the Ole Miss edge. And to make it seem like it was one of those 3 guys, Damon Wilson was on there. Somebody else was on there. It might've been Jordan Seaton. And of course, everybody's clicking the Grok button, trying to get the AI to break through the paywall to read it. And Grok is telling a lot of people it was Jordan Seaton. And I was all day like, no, dude, it's not Jordan Seaton. Alabama's not getting Jordan Seaton. They don't want no part of that crap show. Somebody reported earlier he's charging $100,000 per visit, by the way. But anyway, it was James. It was the offensive tackle from Mississippi State. And they said when they said top portal commit, they were talking about one of Alabama's top priorities, not one of the top commits or one of the top available players in the portal. So it was a little play on words, a little clickbaity, trying to get you guys to click on it and read the article is what they were trying to do. Yeah. And then, I took a screenshot of it, posted it, and said, this is Alabama fans get their hopes up because of stuff like this. And then, when they don't happen, they get mad at everybody when it's crap like that, man. Like, I'll be honest. There's some times where, I'm selective about what I put on a thumbnail. I'll put certain verbiage because views are down, but I never try to honestly just completely mislead somebody on what the topic of conversation is. And that's what that was today. It was really frustrating. Somebody tell him. Thank you for the $10 super chat, by the way. Thank you for becoming part of the Waaaay Offsides family. I'll run the graphic for you, man. Let me do the thing. I got to do the thing, okay? You can find us everywhere. Waaaay Offsides. That's a way with 4 A's. 3's not enough. 5's too many. 4, just like in the word Alabama. Skip, tell him.
Waaaay, this is all caps. Waaaay. Waaaay.
Thank you, Skip. Fun story. He's actually reading something from us. That's actually us he's talking about. So, hey, look, man, I'll take a visit to LSU for a tank of gas and some beignets, brother. I don't even need the 1K, bro. Give me a place to sleep on Bourbon Street and some beignets. I'll be there. Yeah, man. Get that protein bowl. So I'm actually on a pretty hardcore diet right now. Like those of you who have been part of the channel know I've been kind of fighting some health stuff all year. I thought you guys were going to lose me last week. I thought I was about to have a heart attack. I had to go to the hospital. I'm okay. It was just gas. But anyway, yeah. So Chipotle's kind of been like, that's where I'm going. So Chipotle, if you're watching this, sponsor me. Give me free food. So thanks, Gage. That's awesome. I appreciate you. I really do appreciate you guys that have been watching and locked in with us for a long time. This is your show. We try to, we don't take ourselves too serious. Like we talk to a lot of people around Alabama, right? We talk to, you guys see it. We've had Clint Lamb on, EG, Justin Smith from Touchdown Alabama, Nick Kelly. We're going to try to get Christian Miller on soon. His schedule's absolutely insane. And I haven't asked him yet, but for those of you who are in tonight, Trent Seaborn will be on with us very, very soon. Last year we had Xavier Griffin on. I had a ton of folks on this past year. And so we try to make it entertaining, but at the same time, we're not like insiders who are embedded into the program. And there's very few of those. And the majority of those are working behind paywalls. That's not us, man. We're just regular dudes who like talking Alabama. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. But ultimately, we just want to make sure you guys have a good time. My strong suit is trying to be entertaining and just talking about stuff like I know what I'm talking about, and sometimes I just don't. So thank you, J-Bake. There it is. They are, yeah. He followed Jeff actually on it. Which, by the way, I don't know what's going on X. You guys help me out, man. Like I don't know. Like I've had a rough day on socials. So YouTube's been tough too today. I don't really know what's going on. Oh, you're a trucker. Well, that's pretty cool. First of all, so Waaaay Offsides is the name of the show. I'm Cotton. You just call me Cotton. My real name is Michael, but you can call me Cotton. It's what everybody that I associate with calls me. And then there's Jeff. Chris and Bill pop in from time to time. They've both been pretty busy lately. But since you're a trucker, we also are, and Jeff is struggling to keep up with the episodes. So, but everybody say thank you, Jeff, in the chat. But Jeff has been putting all of our stuff up on Spotify and Apple Music. So if you listen to podcasts while you're driving, man, it's right there for you. Thanks, Gage. Appreciate you. Thank you, Gelato. Gelato's a OG, been around a while. Thank you for the super chat. He says, Roll Tide, do you think Bama needs to take less high school players and focus more on the transfer portal? I think they could find a better balance. Yes. Yeah. But I also feel like the jury's not out on what is the most appropriate way to do it. Right. When we look at the transfer portal, there's been some success stories for sure. But there's also been some massive failures. FSU a couple of seasons ago. And so, Lane Kiffin got Ole Miss close this year with the portal. And so I'm starting to lean towards, they need to probably be more aggressive in the portal. Here's the thing. If Alabama's going to lose talent to the portal, every season, which we can just go ahead and say, yes, that's likely going to happen, right? They've got to figure out a way to replace the talent, the production and the talent they lose with equal or greater, right? I'm not convinced all the way across the board that it's happened in this portal cycle. I think that they whiffed on a couple of guys early that they would have liked to get more involved in. I think they got absolutely played by Hollywood Smothers. You guys know that. It was just dirty. But yeah, I do think that Alabama's got to find a better balance. Now, I think their bread and butter is always going to be high school. It's always going to be high school. When we talk to these recruits, Jay Clay, Xavier Griffin's mom, we had Jet Thamala on. He talked about it. Jabarius Garor, who, if you don't know him, he's 4-star edge, committed to Alabama in the 2027 class. We did an interview with him. It's on the channel. You can go find it. They all talked about the culture under Kalen DeBoer. These players love the culture. So ideally, and Courtney Morgan discussed this on National Signing Day, their goal is retention of the players they bring in who are playing on Saturdays. But again, you have to assume, the assumption has to be moving forward until something changes, that you're going to lose a ton of talent in the transfer portal every year. That way you have a logistical plan, you have a strategy in place to attack that portal. Because if you're not replacing the level of talent that you lose, then you've got a deficiency, right? And that's why we're kind of pumping the brakes on this whole Alabama's going to be competing for a national championship thing in 2026. I'm not saying that they can't, but realistically, there's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of question marks. And I don't want to lure anybody into this false sense of Alabama's going to rule the world in 2026. I think when you look at the roster and the age, it makes more sense to talk about 2027 as opposed to 2026 in terms of them being competitive. But again, it's a very talented roster that's going to be in Tuscaloosa. And then, there's a lot of people who don't have confidence in the coaching staff to get it done. So that's just me, but thank you so much for the super chat. All right, let's take a look. Oh, thank you, Willie. Thank you, man. Listen, Willie, if I ever post anything that pisses you off, just ignore it, okay? You don't have to unfollow. By the way, Willie, I got a question. I'll wait for you to answer it. Did you happen to ever see an image of Ryan Day with a nipple ring that went super viral all over social media? Did you happen to see that at the beginning of the football season? I'll wait for you to answer in the chat. No, chat, don't tell him. Don't tell him. Don't tell him. It's a secret. Jeff, buddy, I don't know how you keep up with all these comments, man. This is difficult. Yeah, Gage, I got an answer for this question. That's because money's finite, right? So this NIL thing, right? It's not in an economy. Money is typically kind of circulating. That's not the case with NIL. It's finite. At some point in time, it's going to dry up. I don't care how rich a school is, how rich a booster is. There's not a lot of return on investment for people that are dumping just millions of dollars of their money into these programs. At some point in time, it's going to dry up. Alabama, although they're not poor, I think Alabama's roster is like the 10th most expensive in the country, something like that. They're not poor. They're just a lot more strategic about how they're using their NIL. I think that they could be a little more aggressive with it, 100%, but we'll see how that, I think potentially the staff is going to learn a lot this portal cycle. They didn't really have to struggle too much with it last year. They lost a little bit, but then in the spring portal, they kept everybody. This is the first year that they're really going to have that kind of attrition where they have to, make up for it. And so it's either going to be hit or miss, but I think in terms of us, you, me, everybody else in the chat, the only bearing we have over it is donating to Yay, Alabama, right? And so unless you guys are secret millionaires, J-Bake might be. So we'll see. Yeah. Yeah. Bama Boy Davis. Yeah, that. I hated to lose him. production, about 600 yards on the year. Wasn't anything flashy that was jumping off the page, but he was not great in terms of blocking. He was one of the worst on the team. So if Alabama can go get another wide receiver who can block, and Alabama's going to ask their wide receivers to block this year, I would imagine if they don't, I think there's some games where we saw certain wide receivers not playing and folks are like, oh, he's got to be dinged up and this and that. Not just Ryan Williams. And that was why they were sitting him, is because they weren't blocking. They weren't doing the entire job. You know what I mean? Let's go all the way down here. Yeah, Steven, I agree. They have to be like, we don't have it like Texas. We don't have it like Oregon. Like, that's just the truth. Accept it. It is what it is. But that's okay as long as Alabama is using it strategically. And I think they are. I think they could be a little more aggressive in the portal next season. I don't know, especially along the defensive line. If they actually replace the talent that they lost, that remains to be seen. But there's some concern there for sure. Oh, he did? Okay, thank you. Yeah, so that was us. We actually made that. I did. Jeff had no part in it. I don't know if he wants to be included in that. Yeah, I made that. So yeah, welcome. We have a wild time here. So sometimes it gets, our Thursday night lives can kind of get a little unhinged. And that's kind of the whole point, man. That's why it's called Way Offsides is we just want to make sure everybody has a good time. We try not to take ourselves too serious, because ultimately at the end of the day, I'm just a dude who craps his pants just like you. So, I think he had a couple of really nice contested catches there down the sideline. Steven, don't you? He wasn't doing it consistently, but they were there. Thank you, J-Bait, because I would have never seen it, man. No, Gelato, he can't. I did. I will say, if you guys have seen the, everybody know the media day picture of Carson Beck in the green blazer with the chain that was turned into Sid the Sloth. That was also me. I did not think to brand that or the Ryan Day photo before I posted them, but yeah, those were both me. So absolutely. We will. If you're talking about those, certainly. Yes. Unlikable is putting it nicely, Lance. I expect a more colorful explanation or descriptive word from you. Don't do it in the chat, because our algorithm already sucks right now. So don't do it in the chat. But yeah, absolutely. What if they don't? Ask Ole Miss. Ask Duke. There's a lot of folks going through that right now. I think Duke is, I can't remember his name, but quarterback that Miami wants really bad. I think Duke's planning on enforcing his contract. So, and the only way they can really do that is to refuse the release. But ultimately, man, all these guys are going to do is file a lawsuit, and it'll immediately get signed and they'll get released. The problem isn't these kids. Like these kids they're just that. They're kids. They're dumb. For those of you who are a little bit older, or we were all young too and just stupid and didn't know how the world worked. The problem is these agents, man. Like, it's so unregulated, and the fact that you can just go, I could just tomorrow be like, you know what, I'm going to be an agent. Hey, man, you're really good at football. Let me represent you. I'm going to make you millions of dollars, and then just shop this kid around, not knowing at all what I'm doing is, that's the biggest problem. We do. Says the man with a lightsaber in his profile picture. They got a good track record, Lance. Come on. Golly. But anyway, all right. So outlook for Alabama's offensive line. Let's talk about that a little bit. We're almost at an hour. We went a lot longer than I expected to. Sorry, my camera just went funky. Went a lot longer. Yeah, they did. Went a lot longer. These are not. Anyway, sorry, never mind. Jeff, I was making a joke for you. They are, Willie, and they absolutely should. There's got to be some, dude. There's got to be some kind of accountability. There has to be. Like, this is just the Wild West, man. And anywhere else, if you do what some of these student athletes are doing, you're getting sued, man. It's the same thing as like signing a non-compete clause for a company. It's the same freaking thing, but whatever. Yeah, let's talk about the outlook of Alabama's offensive line really quick. Where do I think it stands? Well, let me bring up the graphic now. This hasn't been updated in a couple of days, but it still has names on it. So if there's a couple names on here that you don't see, don't panic. It's just because we haven't updated it. But in terms of Alabama's offensive line, because that's what we're talking about tonight, obviously you get the James edition today, Nick Brooks, Delgatti. Delgatti's the dog, man, but it remains to be seen if he's going to be able to do what he did at that level in the SEC. Ty Haywood, who I think will be a very, very good addition. I covered Ty Haywood extensively coming out of high school. And I really do think Haywood's going to be really, really good. Caden Strayhorn, I'll be honest, I'm not super excited about. Same with Ethan Fields. Feels like more of a depth piece. When we look at what Alabama has, Mal Waldrop Jr., they lose Micah DeBose, Bryson Cooley, Chris Booker, Jackson Lloyd, Bear Fretwell, Will Sanders, Jared Daughter, and Tyrell Miller. Super duper young. Super duper 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 young. Super young. So what is the outlook? What can we expect? Well, I'll tell you, you can expect it to be rough to start off. No matter what happens, no matter if they end up being a national championship caliber offensive line, which I don't think that's fair. That's a fair expectation, but I'm just using it as an illustrated point. I think it's going to be rough for a couple of weeks. Luckily for Alabama, unlike last year, the schedule does set up to help them out. Right. So I say week 3, week 4, we take a really good hard look at it and see where Alabama is. I looked at it. What were they ranked? Like 120th, something like that in the country in rushing last year. They were averaging 104 yards a game. Absolutely abysmal and not okay. Again, and maybe this is Cope. You can tell me if it's Cope. If Alabama could run the football last year and take some of the pressure off of Ty Simpson, I do think that they're probably winning a national title. I think that's what all those people saw that were hyping them up so much before the season started. There's going to be growing pains, man, and we're going to have to be patient. I know a lot of people don't want Coach Cap. I know a lot of people don't want Ryan Grubb. Kalen DeBoer took that responsibility on his shoulders because at this point, if it looks the same that it did last year, that's going to fall on him, right? And a high majority of the fan base that is still supporting him is probably going to turn on him. And Nick Saban even said it himself. It's not the standard, right? So, I'm going to talk about him in a different video. But yeah, you're talking about Zulu. There's a potential that he could play some bandit. I don't know if they're going to use him. He's interesting. He could be more of like a traditional edge rusher, or they could try to fit him over in that bandit spot, especially with, like I said earlier, the Franklin coming out and saying, Malik Franklin came out and said that they told him they want him to play 3-tech and put on some weight. So I think he looks good. He looks good. South Carolina had a pair of really, really good edge rushers that were keeping him off the field. But this is a guy that South Carolina definitely didn't want to lose. Could potentially be the best portal get outside of Noah Rogers for Alabama. So Delgatti right guard, right tackle Carroll. Who's playing center? Oh, center. Sorry, dude. I read it backwards. Right guard. Who would play right guard? Yeah. So I mean, there's also the potential that Haywood or one of those guys, or James could play both tackle positions, and you can move Carroll into guard. All right, that's something on the books. So we'll see. We'll see. Outside of that, I like how you got it panned out. I think that's probably what we'll be looking at. Lance, I'm going to screenshot this, and then I want to come back to it after the first drive of Alabama's 2026 season to see how close you got. So, absolutely true. 100%. Yeah, and that's Gelato. That's what I was talking about earlier. And in that video that I posted that I pulled down because everybody got butt hurt, that's what I was talking about. Was like he has to adapt. Like Alabama has to be a traditional. Like I was listening to Christian Miller, and he brought up a really good point. He brought up Lane Kiffin as Alabama's offensive coordinator with Blake Sims, and Alabama wasn't a traditional run-first team that year. They primarily were throwing the football, but they figured out a way to where the run game was still a big staple of that offense. I think Alabama can do that. They absolutely can do that. It starts in the trenches. My hope is that the writing is on the wall for Kalen DeBoer, and I don't use this word a lot. Never mind. I'm not going to say it. I'm sorry, Lord. He has no more craps left to give, and he understands that it's do or die. Because this is a very pivotal year in 2026 for his career, and whether people will remember him as a success or a failure. So you can go off of what Chris Stewart said, that Alabama itself after the Rose Bowl knew that it couldn't run the ball, and they tried to cover it up and fix it. Maybe that's the reason Ryan Grubb kept going away from it so frequently in the season, because he just got frustrated and knew it wasn't going to work. But you also have to consider, like, does Alabama have the running back? Do they have that guy back there who's going to be able to give them that juice? Because we blame the offensive line and Coach Cap, but it's not just them. The running backs, man, it did not look good at times. But speaking of 3-tech earlier, but there are other times where, your B gap and your A gap are getting crashed, and Jam Miller is, cutting right into an edge. And so it was rough. It was rough. But they absolutely have to be able to run the football 100%. Typically they are, Lance. I agree. That's why Caden Proctor is not coming back, because he doesn't want to play guard. But yeah, I think something that will help. This is probably going to be one of the last comments we feature, but is that I know Ty Simpson was considered a dual threat quarterback, but if we're being honest with ourselves, he wasn't. Keelan Russell and Austin Mack both are more prototypical of what Kalen DeBoer wants when you look at what they were able to do with Michael Penix. Hopefully, them being able to be athletic and get outside can take some of the pressure off the offensive line as well in pass pro. But something I've noticed is that, again, a lot of the guys they went and got so far to supplement, they grade pretty well in pass protection. It's run is where you're kind of taking that step off. So it's definitely going to be a learning experience. There's definitely going to be a learning curve. There's going to be bumps and bruises. So we'll see how it goes. But all right, guys. You might be Bama Bo. You might be. I agree with you. I was going to save that for a little bit later as the season progresses, because quarterback's going to be, but I agree with you 100%. I agree with you. I'll be shocked if he's not the starting quarterback. Ooh, Daniel. That's tough. I think overall this year's team was better. Neither team could run the ball very well. This team got better in terms of being able to pressure quarterbacks. They still had trouble being consistent and finishing. They were better at stopping the run. Again, they were still inconsistent there. The secondary was definitely better. quarterback play in terms of actually playing like quarterback, I think Ty was better overall. I think Jalen Milroe was obviously better down the field, better with his legs. Alabama's run game popped a little more the year before than it did last year. I think the offensive line was definitely worse. Special teams were worse. Can I just leave it there? Can I just leave it at that and just go like positionally? Who's better? I'm going to do that. All right. Thanks, Daniel. That's a damn good question. Damn good question. Thanks, Steven. All right, guys, I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to go spend some time with the family. Thanks for hanging out with me. I know this was impromptu. Wasn't necessarily planning on doing it, but big live show tomorrow night. Trent may be on tomorrow night. Trent Seaborn. If not, he'll be on the following week. So make sure it'll be 8 p.m. Central Time. You can watch it right here on YouTube. If you don't catch it live, you can watch it afterwards or listen to it on Spotify. You can also follow us on all of our socials at Offsides, and spread the word, man. Tell folks about us. Let your mom and them know what's going on. Take their phones and subscribe to us. So as always, man, love each and every one of you. Hope that you're having an amazing week. Stay safe with the weather up there. If you don't need to be driving, don't be driving. You're all a bunch of rednecks who don't know how to drive in ice. So stay your butts at home. Say your prayers, read your Bibles, wash your hands. Horns down, beat Auburn and LSU and Tennessee too. Roll Tide.